What would you do if you were given a cancer diagnosis? Would you listen to your doctor and undergo damaging chemotherapy and radiation treatment? Or would you look at the cause of the illness and try to rectify that? My guest today will tell you what he did and how he beat the big C. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm your host, Terri Chrisman, and I'm a whole food, plant-based nutritionist, and this show gives you the tools to help you obtain optimal health so that you can live a long, happy life and age with grace and vitality. It's episode 56, and today I'm joined by Mr James Brabanec, an ex-Airforce journalist who was given the bad news that he had prostate cancer back in 2017, and he chose his own path to regain his health. Almost 5 years later, he's living his best life, and he's with me today on the Fabulous Health Show. Welcome, James.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here.
So thank you so much for coming here today to the Fabulous Health Show. So let's talk about the beginning. Now, I know that most men over 50 have unusual cells in their prostates. Many of them are benign, but many go in to form prostate cancer. So tell us how you learned that your cells were abnormal and what went through your mind at the time.
I need to preface my cancer story with just giving listeners a little background. I met the woman who'd be my wife in 2014. I thought so much of her that in 2015, I asked her to marry me. And we got married in 2016, April 24, to be specific. And in 2017, we had plans to have a romantic first anniversary. But instead, 3 months before I found out through a doctor and a blood test, a routine blood test, he said, I see something that could be a concern with your prostate. And I'm going to recommend that you get a biopsy done to determine if there's anything that needs further attention. And so I got the biopsy done, and 3 weeks before our anniversary, the doctor said, I have prostate cancer. And I can tell you, when you hear the words cancer, it is very scary.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be around for my anniversary date. I don't know if I'll be around for my birthday in June. I don't know anything. So that was my initial feeling.
What was your lifestyle like at the time that you were given that diagnosis? Were you healthy? Were you eating a lot of fast food? What were you doing?
My diet was standard American diet. I didn't eat a lot of fast food, but I wasn't adverse to the idea of occasionally having a pizza. I was not adverse to stopping at a gas station, getting a couple diet sodas, a couple energy bars for the road. In retrospect, I was eating a diet that was not healthy for me.
What were the options that the doctors gave you for treatment? And what was the prognosis? You said that you were scared that you may not even reach your birthday, but what did the doctors say? How long did they say that you had to live? Was this a terminal cancer? And what are the options that they gave you for treatment?
It's kind of interesting because we got a second opinion almost immediately. We went to a very prominent teaching hospital, and initially I was told I had a low risk form of cancer. We went to this teaching hospital, and they said, actually, you have an intermediate level of cancer, and that's something that should probably be addressed sooner. And in sitting down with their doctors, they said, we can either provide you radiation or surgery. both of those options would have been very difficult for a man who was celebrating his first anniversary to the woman
I
he
hear
waited
you.
his entire life to be with.
Yeah. So when they say surgery, do they mean removing the prostate?
They meant removing the prostate, removing some of the surrounding tissues,
Hmm.
checking it all for cancer, and then telling me how to live with
The
my
debilitating
recovery.
illness. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So you decided not to do that surgery, and you decided instead to reject that conventional treatment and try a whole food, plant based lifestyle. So I understand why you decided to do that, but how did you know to do that? How did that information come to you?
It was great because I had time to do some research, and I went out online. I found a website that was dedicated to providing information to people such as myself with potentially life threatening diseases. And other individuals were out there and they would share information with each other. And there were people out there who were talking about Dr. Michael Greger and his book How Not to Die. And it talked about the 15 leading causes of death in the United States that could be either preventable or treated through a whole food plant-based diet. And when I heard that, I thought, I'd like to give that a try. And
Mm.
so I went right out and I bought the book and I got it online so that when I was in my car for my daily commute, I could listen to Dr. Greger and hear what he had to say.
So don't you love the title, How Not to Die?
Oh, yes. I laughed about that right away.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, what did you find was the most difficult thing for you to give up when you changed your lifestyle to whole food plant based?
The way that I chose to enter into this is I always call it I was standing on the dive board and I jumped into whole food plant based eating. And I surfaced realizing I could, in a sense, swim. I could do the diet. Uh, I didn't have any problems giving up anything. What I tried to do with my meals was keep them very simple.
Mm.
I tried to focus on foods that Dr. Greger said would be the most helpful against prostate cancer.
Oh, great. So, what foods were those? Just for the listeners who have no idea, can you tell us some of those foods that you focused on?
Sure. I ate my greens, such as spinach and kale. Uh, One thing that I used to do back in the day was I made a smoothie that my wife said tastes like wallpaper paste. Uh, I loved the name so much I called it my wallpaper paste smoothie. And what it consisted of was uh, mushrooms, broccoli, like I said, the greens. There was soy milk in it, blackberries, blueberries, a variety of herbs and spices, all with potential cancer benefits, in a
That's
sense, to them.
fantastic because greens, like for breakfast, it sounds a challenge. But I guess when you sweeten it up with some berries and herbs and whatnot, it actually was palatable to you, if not to your wife.
At times it tasted really good. I put cocoa powder in it, I put dates
Nice.
in it,
Ah,
and
there you go.
yeah, it tasted quite good. The thing about that though was I wasn't in it for taste. I would have drank something that tasted awful if I was benefiting my body because I
Yes.
wanted to beat this thing and I wanted to beat it my way.
Yeah. Now, offline, you told me that your wife was instrumental in helping you. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, again, I met her uh, later in life. I was 53 when we met. We married when I was 55, and we've had just a fantastic relationship. And I wanted to be around to take care of her and to be the kind of husband that she needed me to be.
Oh, lovely. That's fantastic. And so taking a non-invasive approach is beneficial to your health and beneficial to the health of your relationship, of course.
Yes, exactly.
So you mentioned that you ate quite simply. When you became whole food plant-based, did your wife jump on board as well?
My wife initially, I can remember one time we were traveling to dinner at a restaurant, and she said, "Well, I believe in all things in moderation, like a lot of us have done at various points in their lives, and like I did uh, before I found out I had this disease." Over time, though, she started to make changes, and the eggs that she used to eat, she no longer ate. She started eating avocado toast, the creamer that she put in her coffee, which was really not something good for a woman who herself is a breast cancer survivor. She got rid of that. She went to a plant-based milk. She now is 9 months along in this plant-based journey herself, and she loves it as much as I do.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm just going to make a mention here that I think it's quite difficult if you're in a relationship and you want, well, one person wants to change their way of eating to be more healthy, and the other person is maybe a little bit hesitant or reticent to do so. I find that you really need to let them come along at their own pace, don't you? And the greatest way to help somebody with their health is through modeling. So if you model a healthy lifestyle and you're eating wallpaper paste, or you're not putting the dairy creamer in your coffee, and you're not eating eggs, then it's much easier for that other person just to naturally go with the flow than for you to say, oh, don't eat those eggs, you're going to get cancer, or don't take that creamer, or you're going to get cancer. I must say that I am guilty of being that person, of saying to people, why would you want to do that? That's going to give you cancer. Like, I am hardcore. And when my husband says, I feel like some ice cream, I say, what, you want some cancer? Why would you do that? So don't do as I do as I say. Be gentle with your partner. So something happened with you 7 months after starting the whole food plant-based lifestyle. Explain to our viewers what that was.
Sure. The great thing about this story is that when I decided that I was ready to do this and ready to eat plants, I'd been worried about how am I going to tell my wife about this? And the reason that was a problem is the previous year we went to Alaska and we went salmon fishing. We went to catch wild, healthy salmon, and we caught a bunch of them. And suddenly I was going to have to tell her, honey, I can't eat these anymore because I'm going to eat nothing but plants for the 7 months leading up to my MRI.
Mm-hmm.
She was okay with it. I was very surprised. I was very thankful for that support for her right there alone. So I dove into this plant-based diet. I got my first blood test a month and a half later. And one thing for people to understand about prostate cancer, when you get a blood test, there's a marker in there. And if you see numbers gradually increasing, that means your prostate cancer is growing. Yes. And that's what mine did up until that point. But then I had that first blood test a month and a half later. That number came down. And then
Magnificent.
this MRI, and we're sitting there in the doctor's office, and he's going through the results, and it's taking a lot of time, and we're getting a little bit worried. And he says, "There's nothing to worry about. I'm not seeing anything. I just want to make sure." And
That's
so finally,
fantastic.
he gives us the results, and he says, "Your prostate is," and he said this in a quote, "it's clinically insignificant for prostate cancer." And my
That's
wife was
magnificent.
so excited. She jumped into my lap and started kissing me.
Yes.
And then she like got all embarrassed, and she apologized to the doctor, and he said, "It's okay. It's not often I get to share good news with patients."
And isn't that a sad thing? And so I wonder if the doctor took note of that, because we hear a lot of times that doctors are not taught anything about the whole food plant-based lifestyle and how it can prevent and reverse disease. And yet you are a shining example of how that happened. And I wonder if he took note and thought, hey, maybe I should look into this a bit more. And maybe I could suggest this for some of my patients. Do you know if did he ask you any questions about your lifestyle? Did he say, hey, why is this happening? Or did he just assume it was magic?
I do know that he's seen it before. There's been some other patients who have done it as well. I also believe that he probably had to stay to his area of expertise. However, he did say that your cancer is tiny. It doesn't need to be treated. We can keep an eye on it through these periodic blood tests, through an annual MRI. And if it needs to be treated, we can treat it. But if it doesn't, I have no problem with just watching it.
Yeah, so the good thing is that prostate cancer, if managed properly, is not terminal, and it is something that men can live with for their entire life and not die of prostate cancer. Hopefully, when your time comes, you'll be 110 years old and it won't have affected your life in a very major way. So my next question is, you mentioned that you had blood tests, and obviously blood tests that are specific to looking at the markers in your prostate. Did you have any blood tests that were just general of nature? So things like your fasting glucose and your cholesterol and your lipid profile and things like that. Did you have any blood tests like that over the before and after doing the plant-based, and did they change?
The main thing that I focused on is cholesterol. There's a possibility of high cholesterol running in my family, as my father died of heart disease. And so I've tracked that, and I've noticed that if I go out to eat, my numbers increase a bit. Generally, though, if I stay on a whole food plant-based diet, my numbers stay right around 170, which, according to Dr. Greger, isn't optimal, but it's still very good. And so that's been my main focus. My other focus is that I'm feeding my body with nothing but food that is good for it. And that is so encouraging that I don't feel much beyond the need to pay attention to my body and how I'm feeling, to look and dig too much into the numbers and worry about something that may be a little bit skewed.
What would be your advice to men over 40 in reference to protecting their health, knowing what you know now?
What I know now is that there's too much junk in the American diet. Too many things out there that can have very grave outcomes on your health. If I had the privilege of getting this information from perhaps somebody such as myself dealing with this disease, I would just say to give up the junk food, to give up the fast food, to give up the animal foods. And whether you do that immediately like I did, or you gradually phase things out, anything that you do, however small a step it is, will ultimately be a benefit to you and your health.
Yes, great words of wisdom. Thank you, James. I really appreciate you coming today to talk to us about your journey. I'm so glad that you are healthy and doing so well, and happy for your wife as well to have you to live with her for the next 50 years. It's lovely to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming on the Fabulous Health Show.
Thank you for having me.
That was James Brabanec. What a beautiful story. I'm so happy he is healthy and living his best life. If you or anyone you know is interested, there is a group on Facebook called Beating Prostate Cancer with Plant-Based Nutrition, where you can get support. Next week, I'll be talking to Dr. Rizwan Bukhari, a vascular surgeon from Dallas who helps his patients avoid death and limb amputation by both minimally invasive procedures and using diet and lifestyle changes. I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. I hope you'll join me next week, next Monday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching the Fabulous Health Show and listening to the Fabulous Health Podcast. If you want to go back and binge watch all the episodes, head over to fabuloushealth.net and click on the podcast tab. You can also subscribe to your favorite podcast platform right there from my website. If you are curious about a whole food, plant-based lifestyle and want to take your health to the next level, you can join my online course, The Quick Road to Fabulous Weight Loss, or see me for private consultation. I'd love to help you obtain fabulous health. So until then, have a fabulous day, and I'll see you next week. See you later.